All right, let's watch this fight here. Josh Kelly, Flavius Biea. Here we go, round one. Kelly out on the front foot. Flavius Biea, as far as I'm aware, used to actually be a kickboxer. But I don't know too much about him. That's nice. Couple of body shots there from Josh Kelly with a left hand. Right hand from Josh Kelly. Nice, positive start from Kelly. We know that he is a fast fighter. He is flashy, he is athletic. Flavius Biea, from what I've seen of him, very limited. And he hasn't started this fight particularly well. Maybe he'll warm up to it. Shout out to anyone in the live chat. This is obviously very impromptu. Oh, big left hook from Flavius Biea. I'm not sure whether I'm in front, well, probably behind you guys because I'm streaming this. A minute 20 into the first round, or a minute 20 left, should I say. Jab to the body from Kelly. Oh, down goes Flavius Biea. Oh dear, left hook. Yeah, so this guy's no great shakes. Will he even get up? Oh, yeah. Trust my stream to stop right there. No, it waved over. Over before it started. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. But he did look rubbish, that Flavius Biea. He looked terrible. I just glanced quickly at the live chat, and somebody was saying the fight is over about 30 seconds before it was over on my screen. So that's how bad the lag was, but well, it doesn't matter, does it? That's right, Warts, the shortest live stream ever. Records are meant to be broken. I'd like to see a replay there. Adam Booth would be happy, but that Flavius Biea looked terrible. I mean, I watched a couple of highlights of his fights earlier on today, and he didn't look anything particularly good, but he turned out to be even more terrible than he looked in those clips. Left hook from Kelly, double left hook. Biea goes down. He didn't go down particularly heavily. His balance appeared to be really bad. It was a nice hook that caught him on the temple. The second shot actually hit him on the arm. And he went down, and he didn't appear to be totally out of it or anything, but maybe he just turned up for a paycheck. Bang, there's the left hook. It was a nice shot. And that was it. I mean, he could fight again tomorrow. That was so easy. In fact, that's what the Sauerland should be looking to do. If you blow out an opponent that quick in a relatively insignificant fight, you should be looking to get out again. I'm very serious, before the end of the month. Well, maybe in 6 weeks at least, you know, because you've done a whole training camp. You're in your 30s. He's on a winning streak. He hasn't lost since the Avanesian fight. It's his only defeat. He should be out again, like I say, in no longer than 6 weeks. Mitta says, Kelly fighting bin men and bums. Yeah, at this stage of your career, when you've been on a winning streak as long as he has, you need to be fighting proper guys. Dear, oh dear. Just listen to the MC announcing the result. Look, Kelly's hair is completely unruffled. Let's have a listen to what he's got to say. And Adam Booth as well. That was shocking, though. That was really shocking. That was like one of the most awful opponents that I've seen in a main event fight for quite some time. Good God, man. What a terrible, terrible opponent. AJ says Booth's stable is ropey. I was hoping for a decent long fight and, you know, some stuff to talk about here in the commentary. This was even short. Well, it probably wasn't shorter, actually. The shortest ever live stream was for the Johnny Fisher-Alan Babbage fight, because that was over within, what was it, a minute? This fight went 2 minutes or so, 2.5 minutes. Big up JR in the chat. People are saying Bunce is gassing it. Yeah, my stream is way behind yours, so I'm going to have to wait and hear what Bunce has to say. But Bunce always talks rubbish. He's known for that. He proper sucks up to fighters. Just showing more replays. It's a nice shot, but he was in there with a guy who was so slow. He had the reflexes of a 70-year-old. And he had all the determination of a 70-year-old as well. Because he didn't look that hurt. But he just couldn't be bothered. As soon as he realized he was in with someone who was way faster and more athletic than himself and just way better, he was like, to hell with this for a game of soldiers. I'm out. Let me get that check. Yeah, I must be a good 30 seconds behind you guys, who I guess are watching it on television. Nothing I could do, bro. There's no Channel 5 here. Casa says Bunt's been getting paid on that for decades. That's a whole fact. Bunce is like the biggest sycophant for fighters I've ever seen. Maybe even worse than Gad. Gad was only really a massive sycophant for Fury. With others, he does it a little bit, but it's not too bad. It's tolerable. Okay, they're talking to Kelly now. Let's have a listen to what he's got to say. For some reason, I can barely hear Josh Kelly. Is that microphone effed up? Because I can barely hear him on my stream. I could just hear the echo of Josh Kelly. Am I doing something wrong here? What's going on? Can you guys not hear Josh Kelly well either? Or is it just me? I can hear the crowd, but I can't really hear Josh Kelly in the interview. Is there an audio problem on Channel 5 or is it on my end? Afro Jam says Dalton Smith had an even worse one recently. His was pretty bad too. Encircled says, funny thing is, this level of fight in the US would be an $80 pay-per-view. That's right. If Gervonta Davis is involved, for sure. Big up Dominic. Gervonta Davis takes the absolute biscuit with his bum of the month club and all that. Although his last fight was a cherry pick gone wrong, wasn't it? I'm expecting him to win the rematch decisively, though. I haven't completely dismissed the possibility that Davis actually carried the guy first time in order to set up a rematch that could sell pay-per-views. I'm still not dismissing that possibility. Encircled says he takes the whole damn bakery. Black Dynamite says, did it look like he carried him? Well, Davis is a tremendous puncher, but his punches seem to have absolutely no effect whatsoever on, what's my guy called again? I forget his opponent's name. Please remind me of the guy's name. Somebody in the chat. Devin says Boachuk versus Kelly, who wins at 154. Boachuk all day. Boachuk. Oh my gosh, Boachuk destroys Kelly in my opinion. Thank you, Lamont Roach, yeah. Lamont Roach just seemed impervious to Tank's power. Unless he's got an iron jaw, then there's something strange going on there. I expect suddenly Davis's power will have an effect on Roach in the rematch. If I'm wrong, then maybe he does have an iron jaw. Yeah, Tank taking the knee was odd too. I agree. It was an odd fight all round. Shout out to Goozy. Shout out to Isaac. But you know, controversy sells. And given how desperate PBC are at this point, I would not at all be surprised if they put some shenanigans together to concoct a quote-unquote pay-per-view worthy rematch. To concoct a rivalry. Do you know what I mean? PBC are that desperate. There was somebody in the live chat yesterday saying that they've lost their Amazon deal. So desperate people do desperate things. Again, I'm not saying that Tank really did carry him. I'm saying I'm not dismissing it as a possibility. That's all. I'm not sitting here telling you this is definitely what happened and you have to believe it. No. I'm just not dismissing it as a possibility. Ming says, let's not forget the PBK power that we saw tonight. God, that fight was such a disappointment. I mean, I didn't expect much from this opponent, Biea, but I was hoping for a bit more than that. That was a shocker. The fans are going to want their money back after that. Roz says Tank didn't underestimate him. He knew exactly who he was from all their sparring. If anything, he was less confident because he knew his skills. Well, we'll see in the rematch. Like I say, I'm expecting Tank to win decisively and have no problems with Lamont Roach next time around, or minimal problems. Sosa says, Hatman, did you see Keyshawn miss weight by 4 pounds and get stripped of his WBO title? I didn't see the actual weigh-in, but yeah, I heard about it. I've seen the reports. That's crazy. Going 4 pounds overweight is a madness. You know, when Ryan Garcia came in 2 pounds overweight, Keyshawn Davis must have said, hold my beer. I'm really going to show you something. 4 pounds overweight? He didn't even try. Goozy says Kelly played the mental card in the pot. Why are they playing all this loud music in the arena still? Isn't the show over? How come the crowd's all... Well, a lot of the crowd are still sitting there. That was the main event, right? Josh Kelly. Black Dynamite says, Josh Kelly is everything I dislike about UK boxing. He thinks he's Roy Jones Jr. when he has slightly above average athleticism. His level of athleticism is commonplace in the US. Afro Jam says the card is also being shown on Triller in America. Oh, for real? How random is that? Triller is still showing boxing? Bet they ain't got Snoop Dogg on commentary anymore. Oh, okay. Still some fights left, some floater fights. Okay, yeah, they occasionally do that on certain shows. They'll put floater fights on at the end. Yeah, it's a madness, innit? If Triller is showing this, that's weird. That's really weird. Black Dynamite says, which platform is Don King on? Let me have a look at what platform the, I guess you mean US platform rather than UK platform. Let me have a look here. Because Daniel Dubois fought Trevor Bryan on that Don King show. I think that was in Florida. So I'm on BoxRec here. Let's have a look. It shows the network. No, it doesn't say on BoxRec what the network was. So maybe it was some local network in Florida, I'm guessing, that may have shown it. And perhaps one of those online streaming services, not the major ones. The insignificant ones. Maybe some obscure streaming service was also broadcasting the fight. Encircled says Kelly's just all flash. Yeah, in any fight that's mattered so far, he hasn't really impressed. Other than the Troy Williamson fight, although Troy Williamson is no great shakes. Tough guy. But even last time out, before this fight, Josh Kelly didn't look particularly good. What card was that on? To remind myself what card that was on. It was on some big card. Was it the AJ Dubois card? When he fought Ishmael Davis? Let me have a look. Yeah, it was. It was. The Dubois AJ card. He didn't impress against Ishmael Davis. And Ishmael Davis came in at very short notice. Josh Kelly was hurt late in that fight, and he was basically holding on for dear life. And look what Boachuk did to Ishmael Davis, just to put things in perspective. Boachuk, and that was Ishmael Davis with a proper camp, right? Actually, was it? Or did Ishmael Davis take that one on short notice as well? Because Boachuk was originally going to fight Madrimov, wasn't he? So maybe I'm being unfair to Boachuk, but unfair to Ishmael Davis. But still, Ishmael Davis, let's say he took both fights on short notice. Look what Boachuk did to him. Demolished him. Afro Jam says, before Triller, Boxer randomly had a contract with NBC. Yeah, I remember that. I remember Ben Shalom talking about it. It is a weird one. Shout out to AJ for the super chat. He says, during Mayweather's career, especially later on, did you ever back or fancy opponents to beat him? Never forget when Mosley seriously rocked him. Did I ever pick anyone to beat Mayweather? I don't think so, you know. I don't think I ever picked anyone to beat. It's such a long time ago now. I can't remember 100%, but I don't think I actually ever picked anyone to beat him. I don't think so, because Mayweather was so careful about who he fought and when he fought him. He had his matchmaking down to a science, to a fine art. And obviously he was a very good fighter. Let's not get it twisted here. Mayweather was a great fighter. But when you combine the great fighter that he was with very careful and expert matchmaking, it was hard to pick against him. But yeah, I remember when Shane Mosley rocked him. Canelo actually fought on the undercard against Miguel Cotto's brother and got rocked. That's the only time I've ever seen Canelo seriously hurt in a fight. Was on that Mayweather-Mosley undercard. You know, I always thought that the Pacquiao fight would be a complete mismatch because it happened just way past its sell-by date. And I got a load of heat because it was 2015, I think that fight happened, the same year that Anthony Joshua fought Dillian Whyte. And I made a video, which is still up on my channel, saying that I'm looking forward more to AJ versus Dillian Whyte than Mayweather Pacquiao. And my subscribers turned on me. They were like, what? You must be trolling. You're just being contrarian. And all. I was like, no. I'm absolutely 100% genuine. Encircled says, I remember that. Yeah, I ain't making this up. Big up Encircled. He remembers. I'm like, no, I'm being 100% genuine because when it comes to entertainment, if you've got two raw, unbeaten, young heavyweights with a chip on their shoulder, that is far more likely to deliver fireworks and excitement and entertainment than two old veterans, cagey, who are both past their best, particularly Pacquiao. And you've got a guy in Mayweather who is extremely refined, technically. So to me, that always looked like a dud. Mayweather fights nearly always went the distance. And he just outboxed you at a very slow pace and so on. So I always thought that fight was going to be a dud. I wasn't excited for it at all. It was way past its sell-by date. I agree. That Mayweather-Pacquiao, I agree with Black Dynamite. That Mayweather-Pacquiao fight damaged the sport heavily. It really did. It was such an anticlimax. Yeah, Encircled says, you then had those Pacquiao fans that were like, if you watch the fight at 1,000th speed, Pacquiao won. Yeah, I remember that. That was embarrassing. That was so embarrassing. Those desperate Pacquiao fans who were playing the fight, like you say, at super slow-mo and counting every single punch and saying, see, Pacquiao won. I was like, yeah. And those Pacquiao fans also used to play footage at super slow-mo of the Marquez fights and show the times that Marquez stepped on Pacquiao's foot. And they were like, oh, Marquez is a cheat. The Pacquiao fans did some of the weirdest stuff. Do you know what I mean? They really did do weird stuff. Yep, it's like Encircled said there. Literally counting a glove grazing the stomach. It got so silly. The cope from the Pacquiao fans was so silly. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, they called them Pactar. They used to call Mayweather fans Flomos And the Pacquiao fans pack tards. Sparky says, what you smoking right now, Hat Man? I don't smoke, bro. I'm not sure why people think I smoke. Maybe because my voice is a bit raspy. I don't smoke. Yeah, Flomosexuals was another one of them. That's right. That's what Flomos was short for. Correct. Let me switch up the visuals here to something else. I need to see Josh Kelly and this Romanian bin man on the screen any longer. Shout out to AJ for the super chat. He says, Roach admitted to almost falling asleep in Manny's corner during the Mayweather fight. Oh, for real? Oh, my days. When the trainer's nearly falling asleep in the corner, you know it's a terrible fight. Hard work medication. Yeah, I remember all the back and forth sayings and stuff like that the Flomos and the Pactars used to have for each other. That was probably the only entertaining thing about that era, because that era was really horrible, bro. That was a horrible, horrible era. Because the Mayweather-Pacquiao era ran concurrent to the Klitschko era. It was just a dark age for boxing. Yeah, Pacquiao put in some exciting performances against not the best opposition, or at least not opposition in the best physical condition, because obviously De La Hoya was totally drained. Miguel Cotto, was he drained when Pacquiao fought him? I think he might have been. Did beat Margarito, but he was kind of past it. Beat Joshua Clottey. Pacquiao really had a better run at in the lighter weight classes. There wasn't that much about for him to fight at 147. Neither Mayweather, other than each other. Ming says, yep, the Dark Ages, looking back, it definitely was. I mean, the British heavyweight scene was also the Dark Ages, although it threw up some decent scraps. Even though the quality of fighters was not particularly high, there was drama. And that's the thing about the heavyweight division, is normally you can find good matchups at some type of level, even if it's not world level. Encircled says, I do wonder if Mayweather would have even been cared about if we had a good heavyweight division at the time. Certainly not to the extent that he was. No way. Mayweather benefited massively from the Klitschkos. Because Vladimir Klitschko in particular turned so many people away and off heavyweight boxing that it left a void, which Mayweather came in and filled. Mayweather and Pacquiao. And generally, I think it is the case. Dwyer often talks about this. That when the heavyweight division is in a slump, the rest of boxing tends to suffer as well. Mayweather had a genius formula, really. It was a genius formula. Ingenious. Where he used ethnic divisions to promote his fights and to get people to buy his pay-per-views. That's what the Mayweather train was really all about. Exacerbating ethnic and racial divisions. And he was able to make enormous amounts of money. In fact, in the United States in particular, they love ethnic and racial beef and rivalry to such an extent that Mayweather was the highest grossing fighter of all time. That's how effective that strategy actually is. You know, race baiting is an absolute winner, particularly in America. It's a winner. From a commercial perspective, you know, if you're selling fights. Yep, he fought on Mexican holidays. That's right. Against, the formula was, if not Mexican opponents, then at least Latino opponents. Because Mayweather never had a big enough following himself to generate massive pay-per-view sales. We saw that at the end of his career when he was fighting the likes of Andre Berto. Nobody tuned in. So he was always capitalizing off the support that the opponent had, which is one of the reasons he would go after these Latino fighters, because they often had big fan bases. And like you say, fighting on Mexican holidays. It was a hell of a formula. If you look at it from a purely business perspective, it was a hell of a formula. But from a boxing perspective, from an entertainment perspective, it was horrible. You know what I mean? It was cynical and it was horrible. Yeah, Ming says, Michael Sprott saving our boredom. The domestic heavyweight scene in the UK threw up some pretty entertaining scraps. Michael Sprott against Audley Harrison twice. Both were good scraps. The first fight ended, both fights ended dramatically. But the first fight ended early. And the second fight ended in the 12th round when Harrison was way behind on the scorecards. And he had a dislocated right shoulder. Or at least a badly injured right shoulder. And he pulled a massive left hand from out of nowhere and knocked Michael Sprott cold. Just as Sprott had knocked him cold in the first fight. Anyone who hasn't seen the first Audley Harrison-Michael Sprott fight, you need to see the knockout. Yo, Audley got knocked out so badly in that fight. That was crazy. It was so crazy. And Sprott got knocked out equally as badly in the rematch. It was a crazy rivalry that those two guys had. One-punch knockouts, both of them. Sprott was actually down in I think the first fight only went 3 or 4 rounds. Sprott went down first, but he got back up. And then he hit Audley Harrison with a left hook from hell. Spun his head. Harrison was out cold before he hit the canvas. Those fights were fun, not gonna lie. Those fights were fun. The Danny Williams Audley Harrison fights were fun too. He gave Audley his first loss, and then Audley came back and blitzed Danny Williams in the rematch. You guys remember that? Poor Danny Williams was on ice skates in the rematch, sliding around the canvas, you know. And British heavyweight boxing was at such a poor level at that time. Danny Williams, for example, challenged for the world title and got obliterated by Vitaly Klitschko, one-sided fashion. But he did beat a washed-up Mike Tyson. And yeah, somebody mentioned there the fight he had with Mark Potter, where he dislocated his right arm. Bear in mind, he's a right-handed fighter. Didn't quit and knocked Mark Potter out with a left hook. Crazy. One of the most dramatic and bizarre things I've ever seen. Ming says, Audley sounds so entertaining now. Yeah, I know, right? Because Audley just got slagged off the whole time he was fighting. But in retrospect, he did give us some entertainment during his days. Except for when he fought David Haye. That was horrible. AJ says, Harrison in Prize Fighter was funny. Yeah, Harrison, he had all of the rhetoric, didn't he? Of a fighter that was going places, but just never delivered in the ring. And he oversold his achievements to a cartoonish extent. I remember when he won some spurious so-called world title against a fighter who I'd never heard of before and never heard of again since, called, was it Rochelle Hasisia? I think he was based in the Netherlands. And Audley Harrison was calling this guy the Dutch Sonny Liston. I mean, talk about taking liberties. The Dutch Sonny Liston. And obviously he was bigging up his chest for that Olympic gold medal for all those years and years and years. Even after losing to Danny Williams, losing to Martin Rogan, the Belfast cab driver. Actually, was it Belfast, Dublin? No, Belfast. Yeah, Belfast cab driver from Northern Ireland. Excuse me. The Belfast cab driver beat Audley Harrison. And Harrison was still trying to dine out on that Olympic gold medal. Jimbo says, did Audley have a drug problem or something? I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. Audley was one of those kind of guys whose mouth would write checks that his butt could not cash. And I always felt as though that worked against Audley Harrison. He put too much pressure on himself. He put an amount of pressure on himself that he simply wasn't built to be able to deal with. I always felt as though with Audley's personality type and his psychology, he would have been better off doing the humble thing and feeling less pressure going into fights. Because, he was a guy that used to read a lot of Les Brown books. Les Brown is some motivational speaker. And that's where a lot of Audley's catchphrases came from. Because long before Tunde Ajayi, and by the way, Tunde Ajayi and Spencer Fearon were also big Les Brown fans. That's why they were all repeating the same catchphrases. Dream it, believe it, become it, and yes, I can, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's all from Les Brown. And perhaps Les Brown was one of those motivational speakers telling you that you have to fake it till you make it. You have to talk yourself up and talk yourself confident and all this kind of stuff. But I just feel like that psychological approach didn't work in Audley Harrison's favor. It worked against him. Yeah? He just put so much pressure on himself that he got stage fright on the big occasions, you know? The way to combat stage fright is don't put pressure on yourself. Try to minimize the pressure. Try to, expect a tough fight every time. Expect hell every time. Don't oversell yourself. You see, David Haye was the type of personality that Audley Harrison wishes he was. Because David Haye was a guy who thrived under pressure, genuinely. He liked the pressure. That's why he talked himself up. And other than the Klitschko fight, and obviously he lost to Carl Thompson as well, but for the most part, it worked for David Haye. When he talked himself up, he was able to deliver. And David Haye always said that without putting pressure on himself, he wouldn't perform to the best of his ability. Encircled says, no, he just had a major fighting ability problem. I disagree. Audley Harrison had all the tools. He had the skills. He had the technique. He had the size. He had quick hands. He could fight. He could punch in combination. Straight shots, short shots. All the physical attributes of the technical acumen was there. But he just didn't have it mentally. And I was always impressed by the fact that Johnny Nelson predicted it all from the beginning. This was before Audley Harrison had turned pro. This was when there was all the fanfare after he'd won the gold medal at the Sydney Olympics, I think it was. They asked Johnny Nelson and he said, I don't think Audley's going to make it as a pro. And at the time I thought it was a very curious thing for him to say, given the fact this guy just won Olympic gold. like, this guy's not going to make it. Why? But he obviously knew what we didn't yet know. Yeah, he obviously knew stuff about Audley Harrison that the public hadn't yet seen. So, yeah, Johnny Nelson was bang on. And he basically said Audley didn't have the character to make it as a pro. That's essentially what I remember him saying. All these characters just not, it's not going to work. Never mind all the size and the talk, the athleticism and the technical ability. He doesn't have it in here, in the heart, to make it as a professional. And he was bang on. And funny enough, right? When David Price was still unbeaten, he fought Audley Harrison, knocked Audley out cold. And it's almost as if he became, from that moment on, the new Audley Harrison. And Circle says, I don't mean from a technical side. It's why I said fighting, not boxing. But again, that's all psychological. Not having the fight in you is a psychological thing. Do you know what I mean? Audley just didn't have the mental constitution to be able to get the most out of his physical and technical ability. He had a particular personality type which he didn't really come to terms with. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like the ancient philosophers say, know thyself. Audley Harrison never really knew himself. He was trying to be someone that he wasn't. And I think that's why he couldn't get the best out of himself, because he was trying to be something and someone that he wasn't. Five says, yeah, he couldn't get out of his head. Yeah, he couldn't get out of his own head. He was always trying to project this image and talk himself up. And he said he would destroy Danny Williams and destroy Matt Skelton, and neither guy could beat him with a hammer in their hand and all this. It's like, you're not built like that, bro. Yeah, you're better off taking pressure off yourself by not talking yourself up. Come in as the quiet man, you know? But yeah, when Price sparked Audley out, it's as if that demon, if you want to call it that, jumped from Audley into Price. And then he became like the whipping boy. You guys remember that? And Circle says putting Harrison in with Wilder was a crime. Well, you remember in the Wilder fight, after Wilder landed a big right hand on Audley, he trapped Audley in the corner and he was swinging so wildly that he literally threw himself over and his own knee touched the canvas. That was one of the wildest Wilder finishes of all time. You guys remember that? That was comical. Afro Jump said, you saying Price took the lineal title of Harrison? Yeah, he took. Have any of you ever seen that Denzel Washington movie called Fallen? Who's seen the Denzel Washington movie called Fallen? Anyone in the chat seen it? Okay, 286 Project has seen it. So, a little minor spoiler. It's about a demon called Azazel, which transfers itself from one person to the next by touch. And it's almost like that's what happened in the Audley Harrison David Price fight. As soon as David Price connected on Audley Harrison and knocked him out, The demon that was ruining Audley Harrison's career jumped out of his body and into Price's. 286 Project says underrated film. Yeah, good film. Denzel Washington has done loads of films that are sleepers, you know, that didn't have a lot of fanfare when they came out, but they're actually really interesting watches. Yeah, it's a supernatural movie. Indeed, invoking Denzel to explain the Audley curse. Another Denzel Washington film I really like is Flight. It's a much newer movie. I'm not sure when it came out, sometime in the last 10 years maybe. Anyone seen Flight, the Denzel Washington movie? That's a really good film. As usual, Denzel Washington playing somebody with a drinking problem. Makes me wonder whether he's got a drinking problem in real life. Because why is he always playing people with drinking problems? Because it was the same in Man on Fire. He had a drinking problem in that one too. Yeah, 286 Project has seen Flight. Wart says it was too slow for him personally. Luke says John Goodman is class in Flight. Yeah, he's good. And Denzel is excellent as always. Ming says, yeah, Flight is quality. Afro Jam says, For Queen and Country wasn't one of them. Yeah, For Queen and Country was an abomination. Denzel Washington doing possibly the worst British accent ever committed to film. Kyle says Gangs of New York is the greatest film ever. Yeah, it's definitely up there in my top 5. It might even be my number 1. I love Gangs of New York. It's definitely top 5 on my list. James says underrated film. He actually plays a character with a different personality in Flight. You know, there was an old Denzel Washington film, which I always liked growing up. And I still kind of like it now, even though it's hella cheesy. Very, very cheesy. It's a film called The Mighty Quinn. Any of you seen that film? The Mighty Quinn? Very, very cheesy film, but like 80s feel-good type vibes. Dr. Wu's seen it. Yeah, Training Day, classic. When he turned heel, I think that was the first time that he turned... Actually, no, there was another Denzel Washington film where he played a bad guy. Was he Out of Time? It might have been Out of Time. There was another film where he played a bad guy, but yeah, he turned heel because he was normally typecast as a good guy for years and years and years, Denzel Washington. But he turned heel in Training Day, and boy, did he nail it. Big up Camille. People are saying American Gangster's underrated. I was never really a big fan of that film, to be honest. I never really liked American Gangster that much. I didn't particularly like Russell Crowe in it. I don't think he... didn't do it for me in that film. Josh Brolin was in that film. You know, Thanos? He was an American Gangster. He actually acted well in American Gangster. It was only a relatively small role, but he played a sleazy cop, and he did it well. Afro Gem says, what about Man on Fire? Yeah, I like Man on Fire. The Bone Collector was decent, Ruz. That's right. That's another one of Denzel's sleeper films. The Bone Collector was decent. I like those murder mystery, whodunit films. Yeah, and that's what The Bone Collector was. FIFA says, if Dylan White versus Okolie happens next, what happens? In my opinion, Okolie wins by KO. I agree with you. I think Josh Brolin was tremendous as Thanos. I'm not a fan of comic book films. And the only Marvel film I really like, and it's not like I go and watch it over and over again, I don't, but I liked it when I saw it, and I saw it a couple times after that, and that was Infinity War. And I only liked it because of Thanos. I didn't like any of the other characters or any of the other performances. I just liked Thanos. Crimson Tide, yes. Denzel did so many movies. Like, he's been prolific. In fact, let me get Denzel's filmography up here and go through some of them. Reminisce. Because Denzel, another Denzel film I liked was Manchurian Candidate, obviously a remake. But yeah, he was good in the Manchurian Candidate as well. Again, playing a character with a drinking problem. He loves doing that for some reason. Man's always got a drinking problem. What is that all about? Just getting his Wikipedia filmography up here. Let's have a look. Film. Yeah, The Mighty Quinn came out in '89. Glory. I remember seeing Glory, actually. There was a scene in that where, because it was, I think it was the American Civil War, was that? American Civil War film. Yeah, the American Civil War. And there's a scene in that where somebody has to get their leg sawn off, you know, because it's like gangrenous. And they give them a load of rum and then like saw the leg off. That was grim. And I saw something like that in real life in a fly on the wall documentary series called Jamaica ER back in the days, where in Kingston Public Hospital, this would have been back in the 90s, I guess, there was no anesthetic, and a guy, again, had a gangrenous leg from being chopped in the leg or shot in the leg or something, and they had to amputate this guy's leg with no anesthetic. God, Jamaica was so bad in the 90s, bro. Man had to have his leg amputated with no anesthetic. Mad, they just gave him rum. All right, let's have a look at this Denzel. Malcolm X was a great film. Yep, he did a fantastic job as Malcolm X. Mississippi Masala, I've never actually seen that. I might go watch that. Mo Better Blues, yep, good in that. Spike Lee. The Pelican Brief. Yeah, The Pelican Brief. The films back then had such great names. Do you know what I mean? Pelican Brief. What else now? Virtuosity. Have I seen that? Might have seen it. So many of them I've forgotten over the years. Courage Under Fire. Fallen. That came out in '98. That's a good film. He Got Game. That was alright. Definitely not one of my favorite. The Bone Collector. The Hurricane. Remember the Titans. Training Day. John Q. Antoine Fisher. Out of Time, Man on Fire, Manchurian Candidate, Inside Man. Deja Vu. I thought that was decent, actually. Deja Vu. American Gangster, The Great Debaters. The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. The Book of Eli. The Book of Eli is a decent film. Unstoppable. I don't think I've seen that. Safe House, I've seen that. Flight. That's a really good film. Two Guns, don't think I've seen that. The Equalizer. Somebody mentioned the Equalizer films in the chat there. I think I only saw the first one, or I might have seen the second one as well, but I definitely haven't seen the third. Magnificent Seven is half decent. I don't think I've seen that film all the way through. But Godfrey, the comedian, does an incredible Denzel Washington impression. Incredible. The best, by far the best Denzel I've ever heard is Godfrey. His Denzel is literally exactly the same as Denzel. Way better than any of the other comedians, by far. And he was doing the Denzel impression with certain lines from Magnificent Seven. You know, doing Denzel's laugh. Ha ha! Everybody has a horse. Okay, all right. You know the way Denzel talks. All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Everybody has a horse, right? Okay. Rusby says Tom Hanks quality actor also. You know, I used to think Tom Hanks was a good actor back in the days when he was getting all the accolades and everything. But when I look back at his films now, I actually think Tom Hanks is actually quite a poor actor. When I go back and look at his films now, look at the performances, I'm like, this guy's wooden as hell. There was a couple films where I want to say the acting was pretty good, like Saving Private Ryan. In most of his films, I look back now and think, no, Tom Hanks actually wasn't a good actor. In my opinion, anyway. Have I heard his Jason Statham? Yeah, his Jason Statham is also fantastic. And he did his Jason Statham in front of Jason Statham. It was crazy. He said he always wished Jason Statham would make a film called The Librarian. Because this is all Jason Statham does. He makes these movies about a guy who's like an ex-special forces working in some innocuous profession. The beekeeper. Do you know what I mean? What's his latest one? He's like a construction worker, isn't it? But he's got a background as some super duper special forces guy. And Godfrey was like, yeah, you should make a film called The Librarian. Where he's like an special forces. And there are some Russian mob guys in the library causing problems, making noise and whatever. And he walks up to him like, I thought I told you guys to be quiet. And then all hell breaks loose. I do like a good Jason Statham film, I'm not going to lie. They're silly, easy watching fun. The Librarian, yeah. I thought I told you guys to be quiet. There you go. Russian hackers in the library undercover as bums. Yeah, The Working Man. There you go. That's the one. The new one is called A Working Man, walking about with a sledgehammer. The Bank Job was a good Jason Statham film. That was actually really good because normally Jason Statham films are kind of like cheesy, popcorn fun. But The Bank Job was a bit more serious, and that was a really good film. The Bank Job. Yeah, Lock, Stock was good. That's right, yeah, Bank Job is partly based on a true story. Mean Machine was the one with Vinnie Jones. I think that was like Statham's breakout role, wasn't it? Or one of his breakout roles was Mean Machine with Vinnie Jones. He played like a prison tough guy, Statham. Lenny McLean was in Lock, Stock. But I always preferred Snatch anyway, with Bricktop. I don't care if he's Muhammad, Imad, Bruce Lee. You can't change fighters. Hugo says the librarian tickled me, that has. Because it's just so perfect for him. Yeah, Alan Ford was fantastic as Bricktop. Iconic. And there's just no way that Bricktop wasn't partly based on Frank Warren. There's just no way. Thoughts on Quentin Tarantino? I loved Pulp Fiction. I still do. It's one of my favorite films of all time. But other than Pulp Fiction, there's no other Tarantino film that I really love. There were some good films, but just nothing really hit home the way Pulp Fiction did. I don't think he's ever made a really bad film, Tarantino, but the rest of his films were just like cool, but didn't really hit the mark for me. Yeah, Reservoir Dogs was his first film. That was a good film, but again, to me, it wasn't on the level of Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction just had so much great dialogue, iconic characters. It was a non-linear story that worked really well. He just hit lightning in a bottle with that film. It was fantastic. His other films like Kill Bill. Kill Bill was cool. Kill Bill Part 1 and 2. Cool. But nothing amazing as far as I'm concerned. But they were cool films. Jackie Brown was cool. Jackie Brown had its moments. Like when Samuel L. Jackson's character kills Chris Tucker. Samuel L. Jackson is so sinister in Jackie Brown. Yeah, Royale with cheese. That's right. From Pulp Fiction. It has so many great lines of Royale with cheese. Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead. Bring out the gimp. Oh dear. Yeah, that was the part of the film you always had to skip. I always found that so disturbing. I was like, skip this bit. Wake up the gimp. Django was decent again, but to me it was a decent film, but I wasn't enamored with it, It was just decent. It wasn't something I would watch over and over again like Pulp Fiction. Somebody mentioning John Wick there. Yeah, I don't like them kind of films. Usual Suspects is a fantastic film with an iconic villain, Kaiser Soze, one of the most iconic crime villains in cinema history. Has got to be Kevin Spacey as Kaiser Soze. And apologies to those who haven't seen the film because I just gave it all away there. But yeah, Kevin Spacey's fantastic in that film. Gabriel Byrne is fantastic in that film. Which Baldwin is it that's in that film? I forget now. One of the Baldwins is in it. Pete Postlethwaite is in it. Linkage says 7 or Usual Suspects. For me, Usual Suspects. Stephen Baldwin, thank you. Usual Suspects is a fantastic film. That's a must watch. And who's the Italian-American guy that plays the cop? The main cop in Usual Suspects? Because he's very good as well. Thank you. Giancarlo Esposito. Thank you. Yeah, he's very good in it. Very, very good. An all-star cast. Oh, excuse me, Chaz. Yeah, God, I'm struggling with that Italian surname, but yeah, he's the one. So who's the Esposito guy then? Oh, that's the mixed race guy. Yeah. Yeah, he's in it as well. Yeah, he's in it as well. The guy who's like half Italian, half black. Yeah, the one that played Gus in Breaking Bad. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, he's in The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects is almost like film noir. It's got like a film noir type vibe about it. Some people mentioning Benicio del Toro. Yeah, he's a good actor. He's a good actor. Have I seen Unthinkable? I haven't seen Unthinkable. I've seen Unbreakable. Quantum Leap says the Arnold Schwarzenegger films are generally surprisingly good. How can I describe Arnold Schwarzenegger films? They just worked for some reason. Even though his acting was unbelievably wooden a lot of the time. And there was this bizarre thing where you got a guy with an Austrian accent playing, you know, all American males in a lot of his films. And sometimes they come up with some spurious backstory for why he had this Austrian accent. But yeah, they just worked. Arnie films worked. They always came with the one-liners. And Arnie had a charisma about him. His wooden acting became his selling point, along with the accent and the muscles and all that and the one-liners. What's an old journalistic term they use? A romp. Arnie films were a romp. I mean, it's just like they were farcical, but they were fun, formulaic, and they just worked. Yeah, I'll be back, Bennett. Yeah. Get to the chopper, it's going to explode. And all that. Oh, you think you know bad, huh? You're like a choir boy compared to me. A choir boy. Remember the WWF stars in films? Yes. Hulk Hogan. That's right. Let off some steam, Banner. Yeah, that's right. That was from Commando. That was one of Arnie's best, was Commando. Let off some steam, Bennett. And when he's hanging that guy off the cliff by his leg. You remember that one? He's hanging a guy off a cliff by his ankle. And the guy says to Matrix, because that's Arnie's name in the film, his character's name. It says, Matrix, I thought you said you were gonna kill me last. I lied. He lets go and the guy falls off the cliff. And then he kills that black guy on the plane. You remember that when there's like some black guy that's supposed to be escorting him to the villains. And he gets on the plane with Arnie and he's got a gun and like Arnie kills him with some quick move and snaps his neck. And he comes out with some one-liner when one of the airline staff asks about him. I forget what the one-liner was. Yeah, he elbows him. He elbows him in the stomach and then like back fists him in the face and then snaps his neck. Yeah, he's dead tired. That's it. Quantum Leap remembers. My friend, he's dead tired. Oh my day. He's a deep sleeper. Yo, the one-liners were absolute gold in them Arnie films. Absolute flipping gold. Oh yeah, that's right. Right before that, any interior luggage? Just him. Dear, oh dear. Who was doing the writing for Arnie films? Because they didn't get enough accolades. Ah, there you go. Yeah, people are saying the full line. Please don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. True Lies was good. True Lies was like a parody of an Arnie film. It was like Arnie playing in a parody of one of his own movies. True Lies, that was good. Yeah, End of Days. Yep. That was supposed to be a more serious Arnie film, but he still made you laugh, even in that. You know? Oh, you think you know bad, huh? You're like a fucking choir boy compared to me. A choir boy. That was with Gabriel Byrne. Gabriel Byrne played the devil. $286 Project says the parody was Last Action Hero. True Lies was when Arnie played a secret agent. Yeah, that's what I meant. The one where he plays the secret agent. To me, that's like a parody of an Arnie film. I don't think I've seen Last Action Hero, you know. I'm not sure I've actually seen that one. But I was talking about the one where he plays a secret agent where his wife is... God, what's her name? I forget her name now. The one with the big boobs. What was her name? And he also had the guy from Alien in it. Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah. That's his wife in True Lies. Jamie Lee Curtis. And the guy from Aliens, what's his name? Yeah, that's what I mean. Jamie Lee Curtis in True Lies, that's right. Bill Paxton, thank you. Bill Paxton. And Bill Paxton, I always remember some super dodgy line that Bill Paxton says in that movie. You guys know the line I'm talking about? Because Bill Paxton starts hitting on Arnie's wife. And Arnie's in the car with Bill Paxton. And he daydreams himself like punching Bill Paxton in the face. Bill Paxton's talking about his wife, right? Not realizing that it's Arnie's wife. And he's like, and he says about this hot, you know, housewife that he's just started seeing. He's like, ass like a 10-year-old boy. I was like, what? What kind of crazy line is that? What kind of crazy line is that? Crazy script. That's a madness. Super sus. But it is Hollywood after all, right? Yeah, mind the algorithm, damn right. But that line always just baffled me in that film. Yeah, all kind of pauses for sure. Pauses on all sorts of levels. Yeah, these writers were on that 80s stuff. They were. In fact, did that film come out in the 80s or was it early 90s? '94, okay. Ed says, have you ever been to Vegas? No, I haven't. I've never been particularly drawn to Vegas, to be honest. Chili Beef says, are you going to upload the unedited? I don't think this one will be edited, to be fair. I don't think, unless, well, hopefully nobody takes us down a dark road. Universal Soldier, yeah, that was with, that's not an Arnie film, is it? That's Dolph Lundgren and Van Damme? Am I misremembering? Dolph Lundgren and, I want to say Van Damme. Or was Arnie in Universal Soldier? Arnie was in Red Heat. He was in Raw Deal. Conan, obviously. So it was Van Damme. Yeah, guys are telling me in the chat. It was Van Damme. Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren. Universal Soldier. What else is Arnie in? Red Heat, Raw Deal, Conan the Barbarian, Commando, Twins with Danny DeVito, Kindergarten Cop. That was a typical 80s movie. Kindergarten Cop was so 80s, as was Twins. Eraser. That was one of the more serious ones he did. Predator, of course. Predator was a serious movie as well. That was one of Arnie's serious films where he didn't actually make you laugh. Yeah, The Running Man, of course. Yeah, thinking about, there might have been one or two kind of cheesy-ish lines in Predator, but for the most part, it was a serious film. A serious film. A great film. Yeah, I agree with Behemoth. It was definitely one of Arnie's best roles acting-wise. Yeah, he was good in Predator. You couldn't really say that the acting was wooden, or he was legitimately good in that one. Terminator 1, another good shout from Linkage. Yeah, Terminator 1 was such a dark movie. The atmosphere was great in the first Terminator film. That was so dark. Troy says Running Man was trash. I liked it personally. I like Running Man. I like the music as well. Yeah, I liked the Running Man. And Total Recall, of course. The funniest part of Total Recall, there were two funny parts in Total Recall. Yeah, the 80s soundtrack peak, that's a fact. There were two funny parts in Total Recall. when Arnie is like out on the surface of Mars and his mask breaks and his eyeballs start popping out and all that, and he's like going, that was hilarious. And also, God, I've lost my thought then. What was the other funny bit in? Oh yeah, when he's pulling the tracking thing, when he's pulling the bug out of his nose. And he's also going, That's a whole fact. That's right, Striker. In Total Recall, Arnie starts looking like Frank Warren. He does. Man starts looking like Frank Warren. When he's on the surface of Mars, yeah, his eyeballs are popping out. He's like Frank Warren. That's right. Shout out to Matt for the super chat. He says, I just wanted to say, if that fight doesn't happen tomorrow, I'm pretty sure my prediction of Keyshawn losing is going to happen now. Yeah, I mean, the guy blew weight by 4 pounds. That's crazy. That's the biggest weight miss that I can remember in recent times. 4 pounds overweight for a world title fight. Man didn't even try. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting if your prediction does come true. Shout out to Matt as always. Did I see the Total Recall reboot? I started watching it, but it just seemed so dead that I had to turn it off. With Colin Farrell. But yeah, it was just so dead. Total Recall reboot was dead. The RoboCop reboot was dead. They need to stop rebooting these classic old films, man, because they just can't do them justice. Most of the time, anyway. The Blade Runner sequel, was it 2049? That was good. Shout out to Matt. He says, what the hell is up with him having all 3 of his brothers fight on that card? Love it, but if one loses, he walks that stage. Mental break? It depends on the fighter, really, because Moses Itama wasn't fighting anybody but a journeyman. But his brother did get knocked out. It might have been on Itama's debut. But his older brother, Karol Itama, got knocked out quite bad. I think it was on Itama's debut. It was one of his early fights anyway. And Itama still went out there and knocked his opponent out in the first round or whatever. But yeah, that was against a journeyman. I'm trying to think of another example where 2 brothers fought on a card and one of them lost and the other one still went on to perform. But yeah, you know, potentially there could be an issue there if one of them loses on the undercard. Yeah, it could be. It could be. Depends how tight they are. And it could also go the other way. You know? It might motivate him not to lose. Give him some extra oomph. Do you know what I mean? It all depends. Wilder's brother. Yeah. God, Wilder's brother was such a terrible fighter. No chin at all. Did he fight on one of Deontay's undercards? That might be a good shot, actually. He may have got knocked out on one of Deontay's undercards. He may have. Now, Matt says, I'm shocked that a Bomac fighter missed weight that badly. Bomac is usually on that ish. Well, maybe most Bomac fighters don't spend too much time with Bomac, you know, eating with him. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Keyshawn was like eating what Bomac was eating. Bomac's physique amazes me. He's wider than he is tall. He's like Adrian Broner's dad. Any of you guys remember Adrian Broner's dad? The guy is literally about 6 feet wide and 5 feet tall. It's incredible. It's incredible that Bomac can actually stand on his feet for as long as he does. To work as a coach, you know, taking guys on the mitts and all that. Matt says AB started to become that weight, though. Hugo says, Broner's old man amazing. Matt says, AB's career failure should be studied. Danny says, am I the only one here who has never and will never watch any Star Wars? Not sure. I've seen, I think 7 Star Wars films, the 3 originals, the 3 original prequels, and then I saw Rogue One. Shout out to Matt, he says, honestly, with the title open now, Abdullah Mason really has an opportunity to get that world title next. Yeah, and he may well do. He may well do. It's a disappointing division 135 because nobody's fighting each other. You know, the champions are not unifying. It's very disappointing. And I think it's indicative of the US boxing scene in general. Too many divas and everybody wants to get paid $50 million if they're going to take a risk. This is why the unifications among American fighters don't happen, or very rarely happen these days. The last one was what? Spence Crawford? And that took ages to actually get made. Years. And Spence ended up aging himself out. Not that he's older than Crawford, but, you know, the wear and tear from the car crash and bad living outside the ring and so on. Sosa says boot Stanionis, but Stanionis is from Estonia. Not an American fighter, is he? Shout out to Matt, he says, not to overhype Mason, but I have as high hopes of him as I do the UK's Moses Atalma as being the next great. Even possibly a Sugar. We shall see. Again, with the landscape at 135 and the way that American boxing is at the minute, I'm not sure how you become a great since people don't unify, you know? Unless you get in a situation where the other belts are not held by Americans and they're held by fighters from overseas who don't mind unifying, you know? But when you have like several American stars in one division, they just don't fight each other. Unless someone gets some crazy deal where they can drain a guy, you know? Like with Tank Davis when he fought Ryan Garcia. Unless it's that, then these guys just don't fight each other. Matt says, I think Mason is going to move up next anyways. He might fight at 140 for a title or just get the belt and move up. He looks skeleton-like. Ed says, everyone is avoiding Shakur Stevenson. That's why unifications ain't happening. Yeah, to be fair, but, you know, that's always the case, right? Somebody's on it. Somebody wants to unify, but the others don't want to play ball. And in this case, it is Shakur. He wants to fight people. He wants to fight Tank. He wants to fight this one and that one, but no one wants to fight him. The Size Game says, Hatman, can you do a video on the rise and fall of Adrian Broner? The next career review I'm going to do is Nigel Benn. I'm not particularly interested in Adrian Broner's rise and fall because I never really took him seriously, you know? At super featherweight and lightweight, he was quite formidable for a while. But he was really bigger and stronger than a lot of the guys he was fighting, to be fair. So could you accuse him of being a weight bully at the time? I don't know. But he came up as a Floyd Mayweather clone. Like, he patterned his whole style and his whole shtick on Mayweather, unashamedly. And that in itself was just cringe as hell. You know, all the memes that people used to come out with. All the memes and whatnot about Adrian Broner. It was just, he was a circus act from the beginning. You know, because of the weird little Mayweather little brother thing. And then he turned on Mayweather like Stan when Mayweather didn't give him the attention he wanted. Then there was the fights with Malignaggi and Marcus Maidana. He went on to lose to Pacquiao and claimed he won. Lost to Mikey Garcia. It's like, what was the rise though? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really see there was much of a rise. Yeah, he did his thing at super featherweight and lightweight, but it wasn't all that impressive when you consider the opposition. Matt says, Nigel Benn really wasn't that great of a fighter, honestly. Highly entertaining, but honestly, European entering world level. Nah, I totally disagree with that. I'm not saying Nigel Benn was like, you know, an all-time great or anything, but he was definitely a lot better than European world level. How would a guy who's only entering, you know, European level, only entering world level, beat Gerald McClellan? He beat Iran Barkley much better than James Toney did. You know? No, Nigel Benn was a good fighter. He was definitely a legit world level fighter. WBC champion at 168. Was he the best? No, he wasn't the best, but he was a good fighter. And shout out to Matt. He says, honestly, Zepeda is a better Maidana in terms of raw talent. I don't see that comparison myself. Zepeda is like a volume puncher and a southpaw. Maidana was not really a volume puncher. He was just a very, very heavy-handed, awkward pressure fighter. And yeah, when he beat Adrian Broner, that was hilarious. Because Broner again came out with all the clowning and then humping Maidana in the corner and all that carry on. And Maidana was like, okay, I got something for you. And then he faked the shot to the body, a jab to the body, I think it was, and came up with a left hook. Put Broner down and man got up doing the stanky leg. And Broner tried to get Maidana disqualified in that fight. You guys remember that? Broner tried to get Maidana disqualified. He tried to quit in the fight until he found his heart, you know, and carried on. Oh, dear. Matt says, maybe the guy who beat Caleb Plant is more comparable. Maidana didn't really have an amazing record, but he fought everyone. Maidana was great value. Very rarely was Maidana in a bad fight. That's right, Encircled. He says, I loved how Maidana could go life and death with a bum and an all-time great. That's absolutely bang on. Because early on in Maidana's career, when he was still fighting in Argentina, he was going life and death with bums. There was some guy that he fought called Omar something who dropped him heavy. Some bum dropped him heavy and he was going life and death. And his breakout fight was against Victor Ortiz. And that was an up and down fight. Both guys hitting the canvas. And Marcus Maidana coming out on top. So Maidana was great value. He had a very entertaining fight with Soto Carras. You guys remember that one? Soto Carras actually had Maidana on the ropes. I remember him hurting Maidana to the body before Maidana came back and stopped him. I think that was at 147. Shout out to Matt. He says, Pitbull cruises today's Maidana then. He goes life and death with everyone but Rolly. Yeah, a smaller version maybe. A smaller version of Maidana. Maidana was great value. I always wanted to see Maidana fight the other Argentine guy. God, I've forgotten his name. The one who knocked out Lamont Peterson in 2 rounds and got schooled by Danny Garcia. What's his name? Matisse. Excuse me. Matisse. I always wanted to see Maidana fight Matisse, but they had some like Argentine pact where they wouldn't fight each other because they were both like, you know, top Argentinian fighters. I was like, man, I don't like all that stuff. Yeah? I don't care if you're from the same country. If you're in and around the same weight class, then it'd be a good fight. I want to see you guys square off. Forget all of this, you know, we're from the same country, so we're not going to fight each other. British fighters don't do that. Yeah, like the Nigerian heavyweights I was talking about yesterday. They suspiciously never seem to fight each other. Who is the bigger puncher out of Maidana and Matisse? I want to say maybe Matisse. Matisse was a tremendous puncher. A tremendous puncher. I remember what he did when he blasted out Lamont Peterson. And that's what provoked Danny Garcia's dad, Angel Garcia, to accuse Matisse of like popping pills. You guys remember that? Because apparently Matisse used to take vitamins or some kind of pill in the ring, and you could see him do it before the Peterson fight. He put something in his mouth, and Angel Garcia was all over that when he did that famous interview with the Boxing Voice, where he was saying that when Danny fights Matisse, he can't pop no pills, he can't do this and that. Yeah, that's one of the greatest interviews of all time in terms of jokes. Where he goes from talking about the power of God and how he believes in God and him and Danny are protected by God in one line. Then in the next line, he's talking about after the fight, we're going to go Vegas and hit the strip clubs. Yeah, I love the strippers. Yeah, I love the strippers. How can you go from talking about God to strippers and from one line to the next? Did he realize how ridiculous he sounded? Gonna splash a little at the strippers. Yeah, I love the strippers. A shout out to Matt. He says, why do modern boxing fans criticize good fighters getting dropped when Oscar De La Hoya got dropped in his debut and nobody talks about it really? Fans have always criticized fighters getting dropped, to be honest. But it tends to be more young fans and also casuals. Because a seasoned boxing fan really shouldn't be that concerned when fighters get dropped. It all depends on how well they recover, you know, and the circumstances within which they're dropped. Because, of course, Muhammad Ali got dropped a couple times before he fought Sonny Liston against far lesser fighters. But yet he still went out there and dealt with Liston comfortably twice. Mark Odell says, because it's the unspoken Nigerian brotherhood. It seems to be. Why are these Nigerians not fighting each other, man? Tosserman says, Ryan Garcia's dad is just Poundland Angel. Yeah, Ryan Garcia's dad's not funny. The two funniest boxing dads over the past, whatever, 10, 15 years have been Angel Garcia and Ruben Guerrero. Ruben Guerrero is like this stereotypical cholo from the 1980s or something. Like a Mexican gang member parody or something. Ruben Guerrero. Yeah, Ruben Guerrero is literally a comic book character. That's right. He's got the chinos on. Yep, the 3/4. So yep. Man's got the chinos on. He literally just dresses like an essay from the 1980s or the 90s, you know? And he behaves like that. In fact, he's like a character out of San Andreas or something, Ruben Guerrero. Jimbo says, didn't AJ walk a collie out for the fight with Adesanya and they were holding up the Nigerian flag? Yeah, I seem to remember something like that. Yeah. So it's a Nigerian pact, secret pact. Canelo tried to do some secret, well, it wasn't really a secret, it was just an excuse for avoiding Benavidez, wasn't it? Well, I don't like to fight Mexicans. What? Man fought a bunch of Mexicans early on in his career. What's he talking about? You try to come with you, I don't fight Mexicans. Whatever. Yeah, there you go, Matt. Exactly. He proceeds to fight Munguia too. After saying he don't fight Mexicans. Talk about gaslighting. Unbelievable. Who ended up eating his paws. Got to put a pause on that line, Matt. I'm not even going to repeat that line. That sounded crazy. Got to put a pause on that one. Have I seen Blood In, Blood Out? I don't think so. I don't think I saw that. I know of the film, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Matt says it would be so refreshing for a boxer to just say, yeah, I took PEDs instead of denying it over and over. The only boxer I can recall who ever just completely fessed up was a very low-level British heavyweight called Larry Olubamiwo, a Nigerian British fighter called Larry Olubamiwo. And he was caught with like 12 different PEDs in his system. He said he was importing them from China. And he fessed up to everything, but I think he did so in order to get his sentence reduced or his ban reduced. And he did interviews and everything talking about, you know, the effects that the PEDs had on him and where he got them from and everything. A full confessional. Choice says, what about them old British carry-on films? Yeah, they were funny. They were funny. With Sid James and Barbara Windsor and all that. And in those old British comedies, they'd always have like a camp character. The ubiquitous camp, rainbow character. They always had one. As like comic relief. Yeah. The Carry On films are good fun. Mark says, I remember Larry Olabamiwo. He was meant to be the British Ernie Shavers. Yeah, but he got done by John McDermott in 1 round. There you go. Action Popcast. He knows. Ooh, Matron. That's the one. Matt says, Bring Her Back is a good new horror movie. Watched it yesterday. Okay. I watched the new Final Destination film, and that was actually really good, like surprisingly good. I've seen at least 1 or 2 of the previous Final Destination films, and to me they were like, okay, cool concept, but I didn't find them that entertaining. But the new Final Destination was, for me, way better than the previous ones. It was actually legitimately fun. I laughed from start to finish. Yeah, I agree with Matt. The new one is the best one. Yeah, the new Final Destination is the best one in the series. And that's very rare, isn't it? Once you get to like this, I think it's the 6th film. Is it the 6th or the 7th film, this new one? It's very rare you get to that level in a series, to that stage in a series where the 6th or 7th movie turns out to be the best one. But it actually is the best one. The new anyone who ain't seen it, the new Final Destination is actually a blast. Indeed, usually by number 7, they're Channel 5 quality. But this one has got better special effects, better CGI, just a more engaging story. It's more funny. Yeah, I like the new Final Destination. The Striker says, Hatman, do you recommend the new Final Destination even if I haven't watched the others? Yes. Yeah, you don't need to watch the others. Understanding the story is very easy, even if you haven't seen the previous films. It's a very simple concept which they explain at the start of every film, basically. So yeah, even if you haven't seen the others, you'll enjoy this one. It's a silly, light-hearted. Could you describe it as a comedy horror? I would probably call it a comedy horror, disaster horror. Yeah, I laugh from start to finish. Did I enjoy Sinners? Well, I did a decoding of Sinners on my Patreon page. I thought it was cool, but I didn't enjoy it as much as, for example, Final Destination. I enjoyed Final Destination a lot more. But, Sinners was cool. It was cool. I watched another film recently, actually, called Barbarian. And the first half an hour, 40 minutes of that film is fantastic. But then the film takes a weird turn, and it basically turns into like a feminist propaganda movie. Yeah, it turns into a feminist propaganda movie after. It's a very, very odd change in the tone of the movie 40 minutes in. Because you think the movie is going in one direction, and then it completely switches it up. And it turns into this like feminist propaganda movie. It's so weird. Because it was really good up until that point. Now, Matt says, I enjoyed Sinners, but I do feel like it targets a particular cultural audience. No disrespect to any culture. Barbarian sucks after 45 minutes. Yeah, I mean, basically, Sinners was or is, an allegory for the black music industry and the way that record labels exploit the trashy aspects of Black American culture. That's essentially all it is. There are some other things which I uncover in my decoding. And somebody asked what I mean by decoding. It's where I basically reveal the subtext in the film. Because there's a lot of subtext in Sinners. Loads and loads of subtext. There are messages being pushed covertly, subliminally rather than overtly. The most overt message being pushed is that, again, the film is an allegory for the Black American music industry. But there are many, many other subtextual elements there which I pick apart and reveal in my decoding. So that's what I mean by decoding. Shout out to Matt. He says, and yeah, Barbarian sucks after 45 minutes. But the first 45 minutes, you may agree, Matt, is actually really damn good. And it's got that, is he Swedish or Norwegian? Skarsgård, the guy that played Pennywise in the It remake. He's really good in like the first 45 minutes of the film. He's really good. Matt says, what do you think about 28 Days Later, not 28 Weeks Later, and the upcoming 28 Years Later? The trailers are beautifully done, maximizes suspense. I think 28 Days Later is a classic. One of the best British films ever made, because Britain doesn't produce that many great films, truth be told. But 28 Days Later was one of them. It was a great film, a horror classic, and it kind of refreshed the genre of zombie movies, you know, with that film, directed by Danny Boyle. 28 Weeks Later was forgettable, and 28 Years Later, we'll see. I don't have that much faith in Danny Boyle these days, to be honest. But we'll see. I'm actually a bit more interested in the gaming stuff that's going on at the moment. I don't really play games these days like that, but they had the Sony State of Play yesterday. And I'm not a fighting game guy because I'm rubbish at fighting games. But that new Marvel fighting game looked crazy. I was sat there like, whoa, I might have to buy this, and I don't even play fighting games. I won't buy it, but you know, it just looked very, very impressive. That new Marvel fighting game. There was also a new 007 game that looked decent. Action Popcast says Attack the Block is a really good British film. It's nuts. God, I can't watch that film. It just looked, it's just not for me at all. With the little aliens with the blue glowing mouths, and I was like, nah, I can't watch this. I can't watch this. But yeah, going back to what Matt said, 28 Days Later was a classic. With Cillian Murphy, Brendan Gleeson. The black kid from it was the guy who ruined Star Wars 7. I thought the black kid was actually alright in Star Wars. I thought the female was terrible. Who was it, Rey? She was awful. She was awful. I thought the black kid was alright in Star Wars. It was just the annoying female lead who was just, no. And Star Wars has gone down that route, you know, just always having a heroine in there. Oh dear. The female has to be the hero and save everything now. Yeah, Rey was the worst. Rey was really the worst. So annoying and just, no. Just no. S says the best movies are the ones based on a true story. Not for me. Most of my favorite films are fictional tales. Or at least... Well, Gangs of New York is one of my favorites. That's not really based on a true story. Well, there are elements of true story in it, but it's very, very loosely based on certain stories, you know. But it's mostly fictional, inspired by real historical characters. Danny says the best movies are the ones with a great plot twist. Yeah, I love a great plot twist. I love a great plot twist. Like in Usual Suspects. That's got one of the greatest plot twists in cinema history. Yeah, that's right, Matt. You know a film is good when you feel like you went on a journey. Sixth Sense, yeah, that was a great twist in Sixth Sense. Yep, with Bruce Willis. Is Bruce Willis still alive? Because he's been in bad health for a long time. Has he got like Alzheimer's or something? Goguga says Ryu's Hadouken in Street Fighter. Oh, you can. Well, that's what we used to say as kids. Oh, you can. Hadouken. Oh, you can. Yoga Fire. Yoga Flame. Tiger Uppercut. Tiger Knee. Tiger Uppercut. Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom. I can do with them Street Fighter old school sound effects. Japan. You know, the select stage screen where you selected your character. You both selected your characters. And the plane flies to the location. China. Round 1. Fight. Tiger Uppercut. Matt says Bruce Willis is bedridden on hospice, apparently. 24-hour nurse care and all. Very sad, but apparently he wasn't a great human being, so indifferent. Not in a good way. It's weird, isn't it? It's like a guy who's lived such a full life and done so much in his career to end up not knowing who he is. It's a weird one, isn't it? Alzheimer's is such a strange disease. Bruce Willis was in some great movies. I always liked Bruce Willis as an actor. He had like this everyman vibe about him in his movies. He wasn't in many bad movies, or any of that I can remember off the top of my head, Bruce Willis. He's always in good films. And he was always very watchable on screen. Even in Pulp Fiction, I forgot Bruce Willis was in Pulp Fiction. He was great in that. Striker says, geez, Hatman, you just took me back to 1992. That was one of the greatest moments of my life as a kid, is playing Street Fighter for the first time in the arcade. The amount of money we rinsed playing Street Fighter in the arcade. With Hadouken. Oh, you can. That's that chat, you can. And all the tigers and Yoga Flame. Yoga Fire. Yoga Flame. Round 1, fight. You win. Perfect. But it was always some bastard. You know, when you were a certain age, like let's say you were like 9, 10, 11, 12. You're at the arcade. And there's always some older boy that comes along. And he's hanging around in the arcade all day. Yeah? And you and your friends are younger. And this older guy comes along. And you're doing really well in the game. You're trying to beat the whole game. You might be up to Balrog. Yeah? And then this older guy, he's like a couple years older than you. He's bigger than all of you. And he puts his money in the machine. You're like, oh, come on, man. This guy's a hater. He comes along and pieces you up quickly. And then he is the one that gets to finish the game. You know them ones? Always getting disrespected by some older boy. Danny says, you sounded exactly like the voice in game. Mark says, those boys became the men that hung around the fruit machines. Yeah, them boys used to annoy the hell out of me, man. Because there were loads of different arcades that we used to go to back in the late 80s, early 90s. When Trocadero was popping back in the days as well. So go to Trocadero. That's in central London for those who are not from London. Trocadero was like this big... God, how would you describe it? Big arcade, but is it more than an arcade? They had all sorts of stuff in there. Have I seen AI? I think I did see it with the little boy from the other Bruce Willis movie. I See Dead People. Yeah, I think I did see it. I don't remember much about it though. Danny says, for a good plot twist, another suggestion is The Prestige or Memento, both from Christopher Nolan, and both great films. The Prestige is a real sleeper, because you don't hear that many people mentioning that movie, but it's a fantastic film. It's got Christian Bale, Michael Caine, and what's the guy called? The guy who plays Wolverine. I forget his name now. Oh, wow. Solomon says Trocadero will be a casino next year. Shout out to Solomon, man. He's the money man in the chat. The numbers man. In fact, I think I should start calling Solomon the number man right now. After DJ 279, I used to call him the number man. You call Solomon the number man. It's all about the numbers. Shout out to Solomon. Hugh Jackman, thank you, Goozy. That's the guy. Yeah, Hugh Jackman is in Prestige. Matt says, more people bring up Fight Club over Prestige when I think Prestige is better. I agree. I prefer Prestige over Fight Club. Yeah, when you watch Prestige, you notice something new every time. Yep, it's got rewatch value. Action Popcast says, Trocadero, didn't the Nickelodeon channel broadcast from there in the 90s? I'm not sure if Nickelodeon broadcast from there, but there was a place near Trocadero. Actually, there was somewhere around Leicester Square where they used to broadcast MTV. A certain MTV show was broadcast from around Leicester Square, and you could actually look in the window and see the presenter broadcasting. Do you know what I mean? It was like a thing. Mark says Trocadero is such a throwback. Yeah, old school. That was the spot back in the days. Trocadero. Trolls Abad says, any famous boxers you've met in real life? Quite a few. Mike Tyson being the most famous. Does Conor Ben count as a famous boxer? Matt says, I've heard Anthony Joshua is a very nice person outside of the ring. Have you heard the same? Yeah, I mean, I knew one person that knew Anthony Joshua before he was famous, and they said he was cool. And Circle says Tyson must have gotten mobbed when he was... Yeah, he did. Mike Tyson visited the UK at least twice. The first time was a famous time when he visited Brixton, where I grew up, and he was absolutely mobbed in Brixton. He had to hide in a police station because he was mobbed to such an extent. And the other time he was at the Grosvenor, I think it was Grosvenor Park Hotel on Park Lane, because he went to the UK to fight Julius Francis, and then straight after that to fight Lou Savarese in Scotland. A shout out to Matt. He says there's like a 30-minute video of AJ walking around the streets of London and he helped this lady get her goose back. Very wholesome. Yeah, I saw that. That was quite funny because people on Instagram were calling it a duck. I'm like, damn, do people not know the difference between a duck and a goose? That was wild, man. People were calling it a duck. But yeah, AJ's done many things like that. Giving people money, and he helps out his old club a lot. Finchley ABC. He's helped them out loads. So he seems genuinely grateful for the success he's had in life. Because a lot of fighters don't do that, you know. A lot of fighters, when they make it, they don't go back and help out the people who helped them up along the way. Yeah, they don't do it. So Mike Tyson's one of them, actually. Mike Tyson didn't help out the old Costomato gym and all that. No, he didn't. He left them. And same with David Haye. David Haye fell out with Mick Carney, who was the head coach at Fitzroy Lodge, which was David Haye's amateur boxing gym. And David Haye never went back to reconcile with Mick Carney. He never helped out Fitzroy Lodge, nothing. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just pointing out that a lot of fighters, for whatever reason, they don't give back to the people who helped them on the way up. Maybe they're justified. I don't know. We don't know the ins and outs of each individual case. But yeah, in AJ's case, he's definitely given back a lot to the people that helped him at Finchley and all that kind of business. Matt says Carl Froch should not have won the Jermaine Taylor fight. Honestly, there was 1 second on the clock. The ref could have kept it going for 1 second. Yeah, but the referees are told not to pay any attention to the clock. That's literally what they're told. That's why, for example, although some people say this was, you know, an example of corruption, but that's why Richard Steele stopped the fight between Meldrick Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. with about 1 second to go. In similar circumstances, Meldrick Taylor should have been ahead on the cards. He was winning most of the fight, but he got stopped in the final round with like 1 or 2 seconds to go. Richard Steele jumped in, who was a Don King referee, or, you know, very closely associated to Don King. And people were like, oh my God, Don King's at his referee saved Chavez, you know? But yeah, the Froch Jermaine Taylor thing was very similar circumstances. And it must be a sickening feeling to be that far ahead in a fight, and then you get stopped by the ref with a couple of seconds to go. Striker says, don't forget Tyson Fury donated his purse for the Wilder fight to charity. Wink, wink. Yeah, dear, oh dear, Tyson Fury. Insufferable with all that nonsense, isn't he? Claiming to have done this and done that. And the mugs that believed him, yeah, incredible. Bell says, I met AJ before he was champion, and after he was champion, he was the same person, so humble. But I feel like AJ, again, he seems like someone that is really, really grateful to have got what he's gotten out of life. But I don't think that's the best mentality to have for a fighter. Do you know what I mean? Fighters need to have a bit of an edge to them. I'm not saying they need to be horrible people, but you can overdo it with the nice guy stuff. You have to be able to bring, you have to be able to have that meanness and that nastiness in you and cultivate it, wield it, Salsa says, Hatman, has a girl ever put hands on you while you were in a relationship? No. I have had a couple girls put hands on me, but I weren't in relationships with them. One of them was in school. And another one was a girl who I was just linking. We weren't in a relationship. It was just like a casual thing. And actually, to be fair, she didn't actually put hands on me. She tried. She tried to throw stuff at me. Wine bottles. She was trying to throw wine bottles at me, and she was like trying to get to me. She was throwing all sorts of stuff at me. Luckily, her friend was there, and her friend was holding her back and, was telling me, get out the house, because this girl was going crazy, throwing all sorts of stuff at me. And even when I got out the house, she opened the window and she threw some bottle at me, like a bottle of wine or something. She was nuts. Matt says the whole be humble thing was a marketing gimmick, but AJ does genuinely seem like a nice guy, albeit a bit weird. Yeah, he's a very weird guy. Very weird. Weird personality, robotic personality. Very, very weird. Seth says, what was the reason I left the UK? Quality of life. I never planned on staying in the UK permanently anyway, so it was always my plan to leave. So yeah, I like a tropical climate. Kyle says, why was she throwing bottles? She was a bad drinker. She was one of them kind of people where as soon as she takes alcohol, she starts, a darkness sets in. So she was a bad drinker, and basically she wanted it was just like a casual thing, a link, and she wanted it to be more than that. And I was at her place, and she'd come home because I was at her place before she went to work, so I was chilling there. And she came back and she'd been drinking at her work. She worked at a bar. That was a part-time job she had on top of her main job. And I can't even remember how we had some disagreement, yeah? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave. And when I tried to leave, she would not allow me to leave. She put some kind of like ninja grip on my wrist. And I was like, okay, this is not happening. I was like, let go of my wrist. You know them ones where we think she's playing at first. And I was like, okay, yeah, let go of my wrist. And then you're actually having to like prise her off and like she's not, and she's getting all angry. I'm like, what are you doing? She literally didn't want me to leave the house. After this, I was like, oh, let me just go. And she was like, you're not leaving. Yeah. And it escalated and it got crazy. Yeah, it got crazy. What was her background? She's Jamaican. Jamaican background. Somebody says, of course. Jimbo Sean John says, Jamaican background. Why am I not surprised? Yeah. I need to. That's what I said to myself at the time. No more Jamaican girls, man. Even if it's just a link, I can't do it. I can't do it, bro. I can't take these wild temperaments. Yeah. And the thing is, when she weren't drinking, her temperament was okay, or at least she was on her best behavior when she weren't drinking. But as soon as she had some alcohol in her, it was like a demon took over her body. I was like, oh no. Did the Jakes get involved? Well, they kind of did. Because after I escaped from her house with the help of her friend, she overpowered her friend and came running down the road after me barefoot. And I was like walking up to the end of the road, and it's as if there was divine intervention because she was about to attack me again. And her friend was still there trying to get in the way, but her friend was out of stamina basically. And this girl was raging. But it just so happened by divine intervention that a police car pulled up. Yeah, and a couple of coppers jumped out and they were getting ready to arrest her. Yeah, proper mad woman. Absolute nuts. Yeah, and she was going off. And the policeman was like, I'm gonna arrest you in a minute. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that was like divine intervention. The police turned up just on a random one and saved me. Yeah, the police saved me. And the Celtic magician says, them crazy ones keep me hitting them up again sometimes for the plot. Yeah, I had to lock that off quick. Because, with a woman, once they start getting violent and all that, they're just basically going to draw you into a situation that will result in you probably going to prison. Do you know what I mean? When a woman's violent, like, yo, don't do that. Don't do that. So I thankfully got out of that situation. Matt says, been sober from alcohol for 5 years now, nearly ruined my life. And she had an issue with alcohol, to be fair. She had an issue, a low-key issue. Yeah, she had a low-key issue with it. A lot of Jamaicans do have alcohol problems, I'm going to say. I don't want to say the majority of them, but, Caribbeans in general drink a lot. And Jamaicans in particular overdo it with the alcohol, Like compared to Africans, for example, Caribbeans drink way more. Not than all Africans, because like South Africans drink a lot, Kenyans and Ugandans drink a lot, but not on the level of Caribbeans, man. Caribbean people drink way too much. I mean, you go to a baby shower, a kid's birthday, and Jamaicans are breaking out the flipping Ray and Nephew for a kid's birthday. Like, yo. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, Caribbeans is too much. You know what I mean? Yeah, Jamaicans drink funerals, all sorts. Caribbeans drink too much, man. Too much. Because you see with Africans, yeah, like, well, African parents, they don't really drink. You know? A little bit here and there, they don't really drink like that. Caribbean parents will drink you under the table, mate. Do you know what I mean? Caribbean parents are so different to African parents. Caribbean parent, Rastafari. That's right, Liam and Jay. Rastafari. Caribbean parents will drink you under the table. Caribbean parents want to get you drunk. If you're ever invited to a Christmas or any type of function, right, by Caribbean people, it's the parents who will be putting Ray and Nephews in your glass, spiking, putting extra rum in the rum punch. Yeah, the parents want to see you get burst. Yeah. Like I used to go around to my friends for Christmas. Yeah, because like my family had left the UK years and years earlier. I used to go around to my friend's house who live, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes away for Christmas. And, well, it was his parents' house, that we would go around to Christmas for, because he lived like quite near me and his parents lived about 15 minutes away, or 15-minute bop. So I used to go to his parents' house. And as soon as I sit down, his dad would just walk up to me. Yeah. He wouldn't even say anything. And he just start pouring like the strongest rum in the world into my cup. I'm like, okay. And then when I'd finish it, again, he wouldn't ask me if I want any more. He'd just come and fill the glass up or the cup up all the way to the top with like neat rum. That is what Caribbean parents do, bro. Yeah, they love off the alcohol differently. Rastafari. The Celtic magician says madness like my dad. Yeah, man. Watch out with Caribbean functions of any kind. Parties, birthdays, funerals, weddings, anything. Baby shower, kid's birthday, any excuse. And they're breaking out the strongest alcohol in the world. You know the stuff that you can't even get in the UK? That they only sell in the Caribbean and other places? 80% proof, 90%, stuff like that. Oh my gosh. Mark Hatch says, who drinks more, Russians or Jamaicans? I don't know. Do Russians drink that much? I'm not sure. Polish people drink a lot. Polish people stay drinking. With their Polish beers and vodkas and all that. Polish, man, love a drink. After a hard day on the building site, it's straight home to down like 15 cans. And then it's just pure vodka on the weekend. And Circle says Russia has a massive national issue with alcoholism. Shout out to Matt. He says, Hatman, Russian military issue 3 shots in their MRE packs while in Ukraine. It's generally accepted to drink on the job in Russia. Well, yeah, Dutch courage, innit? I mean, in Uganda, they've got a drink called Waragi, right? which is a Ugandan gin. And the name Waraji is a bastardized pronunciation of war gin, because when the British occupied Uganda, they obviously had African, Ugandan soldiers fighting in the British colonial army. And they found that Ugandans were typically not brave soldiers. So they would give them Dutch courage by giving them gin on the battlefield, because they weren't particularly brave. So they called it war gin. And then that later on morphed into Waraji. You can hear the way Waraji is derived from war gin. Kyle says Polish food is nasty. I never had Polish food, Never had it. But I know them Polish, man, heavy on the drink, heavy on the stoicism, heavy on the building site. Yeah. Shout out to the Polish crew. The Lonsdale Sports Direct Massive. Polish people must be keeping the brand Lonsdale tap out shirts. There you go. Polish people must be keeping the brand Lonsdale in business, innit? They seem to love off like Lonsdale clothes. Nobody else wears that stuff other than Polish people. That's interesting. I think I might have heard that before, but yeah. Gorguga says alcohol is an Arabic word meaning body-eating spirit. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Jimbo says, mate, I see them walking to work with a can of Polish beer. They don't wait. I've seen that too, to be fair. Yeah, I've seen Polish man in the morning. Yo, Polish man love hard living, innit? Polish beer in the morning, cigarettes, bricks and cement, vodka on the weekends. MMA classes in the evening. And Polish man love hard living. Slazenger trackies. And literally never any smiling, no matter the circumstances. Stoic 100% of the time. Not a single sick day ever. Yeah, the Polish men are hardcore. Squatting, yeah. I remember there was certain Polish guys that were squatting in a public toilet in some London park for ages. I think they eventually got turfed out, but there was certain man squatting in there, working on the building site during the day, but to save money, man was squatting in a public toilet. That's how hardcore some of them Polish men are. Crazy. In Circle says, I knew a Polish guy for like 8 years. He didn't even smile when he laughed. See, I can believe that. Even though it sounds like it defies the laws of physics, I can believe it. Somehow that's possible. Lucan says, why do you think Dylan White suddenly signed a deal with Frank Warren from previously doing only fight-by-fight deals? Because he doesn't have leverage anymore. To put it simply, he does not have leverage anymore. He used to have leverage because he used to be able to sell pay-per-views and all that type of stuff consistently when he was in his prime, but he don't have that leverage anymore. Linkage says, surprised Poland don't have any elite boxers. Yeah, not these days. We've had a few decent fighters over the years. I guess Andre Fonfara weren't bad. Way back in the days, Andrew Golotto was pretty good at heavyweight. Yeah, and also, Polish guys love off the roids. Oh my gosh. If ever you go into like a fitness gym in London, the amount of Polish roid heads you're going to see in there, yo. Polish man are taking every type of roid, HGH, and all that. Roided up to the eye, like Pudzianowski, right? He was like the roid king. Mariusz Pudzianowski, you know, he was always winning strongman. His physique was ridiculous. How much roids and other stuff must he have taken to be that kind of size and have the endurance that he had in strongman, you know, and be ripped? Because, you know, most strongmen are kind of like fat and whatever. Pudzianowski was the first strongman I ever remember, you know, to be consistently winning World's Strongest Man, who was ripped to shreds. I was like, damn, what is he on? I mean, he's on some like super advanced stuff. Encircled says there was also some Polish guy at a warehouse I worked at. The man was like 5'2" and could lift anything. Yo. Yeah, them Polish man don't play. They do not play at all. I guess you're talking about like a headless chicken, Matt. Yeah. If anyone's seen a chicken beheaded, the body can keep running around because of the nerves in the body and the adrenaline in the bloodstream. It can keep running around. Yeah, it can happen with humans too. People have been shot on the battlefield and the body keeps moving when they're dead. Yeah, it happens. I mean, there was even accounts, you know, when they used to behead people in Europe with the guillotine, or guillotine as Americans call it. There were accounts of people actually uttering words, you know, the severed head, blinking a couple times and attempting to utter words. And in fact, they continued, a lot of people don't realize this, they continued using the guillotine in France up until the early 80s. You know that? The last person they executed by a guillotine in France, I think, was in 1980 or something like that, 81. It's mad, isn't it? You think of the guillotine as being like a medieval execution thing. But no, they were using that in France until the 80s, mate. It is quick. And I was thinking about this the other day, right? Because people tend to think of like beheading as barbaric. Of course, it is barbaric. But you know what's far more barbaric than the guillotine? Is the electric chair. Whoever invented the electric chair, there needs to be a special place in hell for that person. Seriously, there's nothing more. There are very few more disgusting methods of execution than the electric chair. That's so barbaric. Terrible. The guillotine's actually far more humane than that. Well, I'm talking about, state execution, not, random, bizarre methods that criminals might use. But in terms of like state methods of execution, capital punishment, yeah, I don't think there's anything worse than the electric chair. It's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Matt says, watch the documentary on the Iceman. Yeah, all of the mafia guys say that the Iceman is a complete fraud. Kuklinski you're talking about. Yeah, they all say he's a total fraud, that guy. Are they lying? Is he lying? Because there was a movie that came out about him. Yeah, they all say he's a complete fraud. They all say he's a total fraud. Because Kuklinski was an associate of a feared mob hitman. I forget the guy's name now. Roy DeMeo, who's like a pure psychopath, crazy guy, DeMeo. And Kuklinski worked for his crew. But they say that this guy, Kuklinski, just totally embellished loads of stuff and, he was a fraud, basically. But who knows? They're all criminals. You wouldn't trust any of them, would you? To tell you the truth, Matt says, who's the mobster who's very successful right now who has a YouTube channel? There's a couple of them. Sammy Gravano, last I checked, has a very successful YouTube channel, as does Michael Francis, and they're friends. They've become friends since they've both blown up on YouTube. Francis and Gravano. Which boxer was the biggest criminal ever? As far as we know, because there may have been boxers who were serious criminals and we never got to find out about their criminal history. As far as we know, Reggie Gross was a pretty serious criminal. He was a hitman from New York who fought Mike Tyson. Tyson knocked him out in one round. But Reggie Gross was a hitman. No, apparently Reggie Gross was a more serious criminal than Mitch Green. Mitch Green was like a gang member. And he was a tough street guy. But Reggie Gross, as far as I'm aware, was a far more serious criminal. Literally a hitman for hire. But I think he went to prison for several bodies, Reggie Gross. Yeah, there you go. Encircled said it there. Reggie Gross went down for killing 3 people on a contract. Reggie Gross is a serious guy. And that was in the 1980s. So if he got convicted for killing 3 people, it's very unlikely that he only killed 3. Do you know what I mean? It's very unlikely that he only had 3 bodies. They're just the 3 that we know about. What says off topic, but in your opinion, who was the best Bond? Sean Connery, but I did also like Roger Moore for the comic relief. Roger Moore Bond movies were more of an inspiration to the Austin Powers character than the Sean Connery Bond movies, because of, again, the comedy element. But yeah, I would say Sean Connery first and then Roger Moore. A shout out to Matt. He says Tim Anderson murdered his promoter. Yeah, and there was also I always forget the guy's name. The guy who killed Matt Kellerman's brother. Why do I always forget his name? I think he's in prison now for life. Someone's gonna remind me of his name in the chat. What's the name of the guy that killed? James Butler, thank you. No. Lionel Butler is a heavyweight journeyman from back in the days. James Butler, that's the guy. Yeah, he sucker punched that dude and broke his jaw in the ring. Yeah, what a scumbag! That guy outpointed him, and then he sucker punched the guy and broke his jaw. What a scumbag move! What a scumbag move! Somebody said Kinnan. Yeah, but Kinnan's not a boxer. The person who asked the original question was which boxer was the biggest criminal? But yeah, that James Butler was a proper scumbag. Best boxing movie? Raging Bull's up there. Because Raging Bull's a biopic and it's a serious boxing movie. Do you want to bring the Rocky movies into it? I mean, the Rocky movies are funny, but they're not serious boxing movies. It's all joke business. But they were entertaining, I guess. And people were very inspired. I mean, real people, people that went on to be real legitimate boxers were inspired by the Rocky films because they're so emotive. $1 Million Baby was quite good. That had a bit of a twist in it, $1 Million Baby. That had a twist. A shout out to Matt. He says, no boxing fan ever brings up The Fighter with Mark Wahlberg. Don't think I've ever seen that. Mark Wahlberg, The Fighter. Mark Wahlberg made one of the best transitions ever, maybe the best transition ever, from corny boy band member to legitimate, well-respected actor. Like, his career arc is very impressive. Because he used to be called Marky Mark in New Kids on the Block. And he turned it all around and became like one of the most respected actors in Hollywood from being Marky Mark. Yeah. The boy band era. From the 80s through the 90s was the boy band era. You're talking about Boogie Nights. Yeah, Boogie Nights with Dirk Diggler. That's right. Adrian says, "Raw, I didn't even know he was in that garbage." I'm not sure which garbage you're referring to. Do you mean a movie or the boy band? Oh, New Kids on the Block. Yeah, he was in New Kids on the Block as Marky Mark. That's when he first became a public figure. New Kids on the Block. Yeah, they were very successful. I mean, cheesy as hell, but they were very successful. You know, teenage girls were screaming after him and all that kind of stuff. But there's always one guy, well, not always, but a lot of the time, there's one guy out of these cheesy boy bands who goes on to have a successful career, and the rest of them fall by the wayside. It was the same with Take That, innit? So Take That were a cheesy boy band. Robbie Williams went off to have a successful career, and the rest of them just all faded away into obscurity. It was the same with Marky Mark. What happened to the rest of the New Kids on the Block? I can't even remember. I only remember Marky Mark because he became Mark Wahlberg and had a successful Hollywood career. Timberlake. Okay, yeah, Timberlake might be another example. Yeah, Timberlake. What was the group he was in? What were they called? I forget the name of the group he was in. What was the group called that Timberlake was in? NSYNC. Thank you. Yeah, NSYNC. Yeah, NSYNC. His brother is in NCSI Law and Order shows. Matt says there's a new UK television series on right now called Department Q, very good crime show. Linkage says Wahlberg was very good in The Departed. Yeah, I was never really a fan of The Departed, to be honest with you. I was never really a fan of that film. It's a remake of a, I think, Korean film. Is that right? I think called Internal Affairs, isn't it? The original was a Korean film called Internal Affairs. And I thought Departed was okay. You know, Jack Nicholson was being Jack Nicholson and doing his Jack Nicholson thing. I wasn't really a big fan of that film. Now, Iron Mike says, Hatman, any tips on how to become confident as a man? Take up combat sports. Take up combat sports and accept before you start that you're going to get your butt kicked when you start sparring. Just accept it. Come to terms with it before you start, right? Tell your ego, because your ego's not going to like it, but tell your ego before you even start, I'm going to get my butt kicked when I go in here. It's just going to happen, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try and give back as good as I get, but I accept that these guys are more experienced than me, and I'm going to get my butt kicked. because you've accepted before you go that you're going to get your butt kicked, you shouldn't be as hesitant to go back the next time, right? Because you've already accepted it in your mind. And when you keep going back and keep going back and keep going back, you'll start getting better. And all of a sudden, you're not getting your butt kicked. You could at least hold your own. That will give you a lot of confidence, because the perseverance of coming through all that and actually getting better at fighting will basically put you above 99% of other men out there in terms of what you're willing to do and what you're willing to endure. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, take up a combat sport. It doesn't matter whether it's boxing, MMA, kickboxing, you name it. Take up a combat sport. Be persistent. Just do it for even if you don't intend on doing it forever, just do it for, I don't know, a year or two. And you will gain more confidence from it, because you'll realize that you can look after yourself and this, that, and the other. And you'll realize that you have certain things about your character that most other people don't have. So, yeah, I recommend taking up a combat sport. Yeah, it teaches you about yourself. And it teaches you about other people too. Yeah, it doesn't just show you that you have more strength in you than you realize. It also shows that you've got more strength in you than most other people have. So, yeah, take up a combat sport. It really helps you. Yeah, I like Daniel Day-Lewis as well, Matt. He's a very good actor. I like him obviously in Gangs in New York, but he had so many great roles. He was in My Left Foot. I liked him in There Will Be Blood. Some people say they don't like that film. I personally like it. He played a guy called Daniel Plainview. He was like an oil man in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I thought he was really good in that film. He also played a role of a boxer. I forget the name of the movie. When Daniel Day-Lewis played a boxer. Oh, it's called The Boxer. Okay. Yeah, one thing I remember about that film is that it had realistic sounds for the punches. Because, in most boxing movies, the punches don't sound real. They have some exaggerated, explosive sound when they connect. Whereas in The Boxer, that Daniel Day-Lewis film, the punches sounded real. And obviously, real punches don't sound generally as dramatic as the fake Hollywood punches. Brandon says there's a girl at my gym who I think has a boyfriend, but should I approach? He's never around. Me personally, I don't do stuff like that, man. I don't do stuff like that. If a girl's got a man, nah, that's not my thing, bro. I don't want to reward bad behavior. She's a skank, right? If she's willing to cheat on her man, she's a scumbag. So I don't want to, reward a woman who's a scumbag. Shout out to Anthony YouTube. What's your thoughts on a woman who barely cooks when she's at home? Well, she better be pulling her weight in some other way. Yeah? She better be pulling her weight in some other way if she barely cooks when she's at home. Where did Liam Neeson go? Liam Neeson keeps playing the same character in every film forever. Liam Neeson is playing, God, what's that film called now? The one where he says, I've got a certain set of skills. I've got a particular set of skill. What's that movie series called? Taken. Yeah. Liam Neeson is basically playing the character from Taken in every film he's in now. Like, his whole career for the past few years has basically just been different versions of Taken. I mean, not even in the Taken franchise. Completely different franchises, right? Completely different movies aside from Taken, but they're literally exactly the same as Taken. So he has been typecast to a ridiculous extent. Linkage says, could you date a woman who can't cook? In terms of a serious relationship? Hell no. Hell no. Because if I'm in a serious relationship with someone, then I have to be looking at them as a potential mother of my kids. Right? A potential wifey. Like, hell no, you better be able to cook. We ain't getting the kids takeaway. Do you know what I mean? Every night. Like, yeah, you better learn how to cook. That's one of the main ways that you pass culture on to your children, is through the food. Yeah, Denzel Washington's been typecast for a long time. It's like I was saying earlier on. He's always got an alcohol problem in every movie, Denzel Washington. Damn near every movie he's got an alcohol problem. And he's like some ex-military or ex-special forces. It's been like that for years now with Denzel Washington. All right, peeps, I'm going to shut this one down now. Actually, before I go, Moen Sheng says, just watched Interstellar, Hat Man. It was quite mediocre in my opinion. Okay, fair enough. I really like Interstellar. It's one of my favorite Nolan movies, actually. I really like it. But yeah, I'm going to shut this one down. Shout out to everyone for joining the conversation, and a special shout out to all those who donated via Super Chat. Linkage says, did you enjoy Silence of the Lambs? Yeah, it's a good film. Classic. But yeah, take care, be good. Catch you guys on the other side. I'm out.